Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate gram yat kripa tamam vande Shri Gurun Dinadaranam. Hare Krishna. हे बुक इंग्लिश मध्ये असल्यामुळे आपण इंग्लिश मध्येच वाचणार आहोत. कोणाला समजलं नाही, एखादा वर्ड डिफिकल्ट वगैरे वाटला तर हात वर करा, थोडंसं त्याच्यावरती डिस्कशन किंवा एक्सप्लेन करूया. परंतु इंग्लिश मधून पुन्हा मराठीत सांगत बसलं तर मग खूप वेळ होईल आपल्याला वाचायला. ज्यांना इंग्लिश अजिबात कळत नाही ते त्यांना मी सांगितलेलंच नाही, कारण त्यांना ऑलरेडी आहेत ते, त्यांना वाचायची काही गरज पण नाही. पुढचं जे पुस्तक आहे ते आपण मराठीत वाचायचा प्रयत्न करूया. So this book is called Speaking About Varnashram. Srila Prabhupada on Varnashram and Farm Community Development. This book is published by ISKCON Daiva Varnashram Ministry, India. There is a ministry, I don't know. Actually, this is published by VBT, Varnashram Book Trust. So we are going to start reading introduction to this book, and if it is not there, I will give a little bit of history of this book also. So let's start. Introduction. 5,000 years ago, in the forest of Naimisharanya, Suta Goswami addressed the assembly of sages and informed them, the occupational activities of a man performs according to his position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. This is the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Suta Goswami says this: our work is meaningless if it does not lead to love of God. There is no point in doing it. But the average person must spend most of his or her life working just to secure a livelihood. In such a circumstance, what hope is there for spiritual advancement? It's a very beautiful, मी एक्सप्लेन करायचं नाही म्हणून ठरवलेलं, पण ज्यांना हे माहिती नाही आहे त्यांच्यासाठी. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Suta Goswami says that we all have to work. And if that work is not connected with God, if it does not provoke love of God, then that work is useless. But the practically every day, if we see, we all have to work. Because we have to maintain our body. Our livelihood depends on that. So, if that work is not related with God, it will be meaningless. That's where Varnashram comes in. That question lies at the core of the Bhagavad-gita, where we see Arjun proposing to give up his position as a great warrior to adapt the renounced life of a beggar. Don't do it, advises Krishna. Spiritual perfection lies not in renouncing work, but in performing your work as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Do the work which is suitable for your nature and perform it as an offering unto me. That is the way to spiritual perfection. If you do your work as an offering of love for me, then surely you will come to me at the end of life. So Varnashram is meant to provide the framework in which people of all different personality types and at different phases of life can perform their work as an offering to the Lord. Sometimes we think that Varnashram means a Brahmana studying scriptures, a Kshatriya fighting battles, a Vaishya maintaining a shop, and a Shudra practicing carpentry. The Brahmachari attends classes, the Grahastha maintains a household, the Vanaprastha visits the holy places, and the Sannyasi lives simply in a hut and preaches. But Varnashram is more than that. It is a system which guides the relationships between the different Varnas and Ashramas so that the different groups work cooperatively for the spiritual advancement of the whole society. Just because we have 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas, it does not mean we have Varnashram. The key to Varnashram is the relationships of mutual support between the different groups. So this introduction is given by Hare Krishna Devidasi, who is the compiler of this book. She was the disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and we should have read that also somewhere. It must be there. Okay, we should read that also. So the history is in 1980s, around in the late 1980s, in December 1992. Let me read the preface so you guys, let's skip the introduction for today. I'll read the preface. In December 1992, ISKCON's governing body commission established Correspondence Resolution number 9, creating a farm research committee to research Prabhupada's instructions on farming and rural community development. The committee realized that to research instructions on community development meant to research Prabhupada's instruction on social development. To research instructions on social development meant, in turn, to research Prabhupada's instructions on Varnashram Dharma. Thus, the current work was assembled. The committee's goal in creating this work has been to provide a systematically organized reference and resource for devotees in the Hare Krishna movement, from temple presidents and rural project leaders to farmers, rural community members, and Gurukul and upper level teachers and their students, and especially to provide guidance for the leaders of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, as they seek to carry out the instructions of the ISKCON's founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, in his mission of helping create a society dedicated to the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. In addition, we want to provide an authoritative source for scholars who in the near future are sure to become increasingly interested in Prabhupada's teachings on how to organize a peaceful, productive, God-centered society. Such researchers should know that the Krishna consciousness movement is founded on the scriptural principle propagated in the recent age by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that the Lord in His full potency is present in His names such as Allah, Jehovah, Govinda, and many other transcendental names, of which the name Krishna and Ram are prominent. The potency of the name of God is recognized in all religions around the world. According to India's ancient Vedic scriptures such as the Agni Puran and Brihanaradiya Puran, the most potent means of deliverance from illusion and material misery in the current age is to chant the holy names of the God. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra is specifically mentioned in many places such as the Kali Santaran Upanishad, For example, which states, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, iti shodashakam namanam kali kalmasha nashanam natah parataropayah sarva vedeshu drishyate. After searching through all the Vedic literatures, one cannot find a method of religion more sublime for this age than chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. हे कली संतरण उपनिषद मध्ये दिलेलं आहे. Yes, that is the goal. Then how does the farm community and Varnashram ties into this? That's why this book is written. Even though this method of spiritual advancement appears easy to adopt, it was Prabhupada's realization that most people are so caught up in the illusory activities of the modern world that they are not able to directly avail themselves of the opportunity. Therefore, following in the footsteps of his spiritual predecessors in the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya line of disciplic succession, he presented the system of Varnashram Dharma, also known as Daiva Varnashram, to pave the way for the spiritual progress by creating an environment in which chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in devotional service to the Lord would become easy and satisfying for everyone, even those coming from the lowest and least spiritually inclined segments of the population. This is where the magic of Varnashram Dharma is. Yes, everybody has to chant Hare Krishna, and that is the only means of delivering ourselves in this age of Kali. But how to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra in a suitable environment, in a conducive environment, that is missing. In city life, we cannot do it effectively. If you can ask devotees who are trying to do it for many years, they will tell you that even one round of chanting is very difficult. So unless you go to a very conducive, very natural environment and develop a community which is centered on serving the Lord, it's very difficult to chant, to complete our chanting actually very effectively. So the present volume, means this book, is intended to be the first of the series presenting Prabhupada's instructions on Varnashram and rural community development. The series is planned to be organized as follows: Volume 1, Conversations and Lectures; Volume 2, Varnashram Fundamentals, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, including discussion of occupational training, land distribution and taxation; Volume 3, Vaishyas and Shudras, including discussion on farming, cow protection, economics; Volume 4, Brahmachari and Grihasthas, including discussion on the role of women and children; and Volume 5, Vanaprasthas and Sannyasis. Volume 5 will also include a glossary and comprehensive index. Well, unfortunately, only Volume 1 came out, and even that, the GBC and BBT, they decided to stop printing because nobody likes to talk about Varnashram. Nobody likes to talk about farm communities in the ISKCON actually. It's very unfortunate. But fortunately, His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Maharaj and his team, they took the rights of this book from BBT and they started printing it. And thank God, thank Krishna, we have this, at least this first volume with us. The editors of this series encourage devotees who may have had personal exchanges and letters from Prabhupada related to these topics to contact us so that we may include that information in our presentation. So what I'm reading right now is written by the original compiler Hare Krishna Devidasi in 1992. We want to stress that this volume has been edited to maintain focus on the subject of the book. Scholars doing research may wish to contact the Bhakti Vedanta archives for original sources. Many devotees and friends of the devotees have helped bring this presentation of Prabhupada's Varnashram message to fruition. They have provided funding, encouragement, and leads to valuable information in letters, discussions, emails, messages, and phone conversations. Okay. So the rest of the preface is thanking everyone who helped make this book. So I'm going to skip it and then start our reading of introduction. Then there is little introduction about His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I hope we don't have to read that. We are all aware of Srila Prabhupada's biography and his work. So I'll come back to introduction where we were reading that Varnashram doesn't really mean just, Brahmanas doing Brahmanas work, Kshatriyas doing Kshatriyas work. Varnashram means all these 4 Varnas and all these 4 ashramas, bringing them together and understanding and creating a community where collectively we all help each other and establish a culture where Lord Krishna's service is the primary goal of the society. So I'll start reading from the 4th paragraph. I think Krishna Chaitanya has found the PDF of this book he will send, so you guys can refer next week from next week's reading. So I will continue from introduction again. We can make a comparison between Varnashram and marriage. The marriage unit consists of a man and a woman, but simply the fact that we have a man and a woman does not mean we have a marriage. There must be a socially recognized relationship between the man and woman. And each partner should perform activities in support of other to create cooperative, mutually supportive relationship. This is what a marriage is meant to be. Similarly, in Varnashram, the members of each Varna and ashram have specific roles to play to support the other groups in society and to promote a cooperative, mutually supportive relationship. Each group must help the other groups not only to provide the practical necessities of life and a wholesome sense of community, but even more importantly to facilitate the whole society's worship of the Supreme Lord. So now you can see why we are reading this book. We are going to come together and establish a community, but what is the goal, vision of that community? It should be based on Varnashram. Everybody will have different tasks, everybody will have different occupation to perform, but the end goal is to help the rest of the group. In which way? To build the community, to build relationship. At the same time, main goal is worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Now we know that not all marriages are loving, supportive relationships. In some marriages, the partners may have a hateful and abusive relationship, but that does not mean that marriage is meant to promote hatred and abuse. Not all class systems are cooperative, mutually supportive social structures. At this point in history, in fact, we do not see any prominent example of such social structure. But that does not mean that social structure is meant to promote exploitation and abuse. Social structure, as originally designed by the Supreme Lord, is meant to provide material welfare and spiritual progress for all the members of the society. See, both material and spiritual. It is this original social structure, Varnashram Dharma, sometimes known as Daiva Varnashram, that Srila Prabhupada wanted his followers to establish for the benefit of all people all over the world. What the author is trying to say is, the system of marriage, bringing man and woman together and living in a society, is approved by almost every community or every part of the world. Why? Because it is very good for social structure. Now today we see that many men and women, they kind of marry, but they are in a hateful, abusive marriage. Husband, wife hate each other, abuse each other. But that does not mean the system itself has gone wrong. Okay? Like many people in the cities today, they think that, why get married if all we have to do is fight with each other? And the same kind of thinking has come into Varnashram system. Why support Varnashram, this Brahmana and Kshatriya, this caste system? Because all we are seeing from so many years is just fighting among these caste systems. But it's a perfect system created by Krishna. So we cannot avoid this system. Actually, we have to think about how to establish this in a proper way, in a scientific way. In this volume, we will see that Prabhupada's approach to Varnashram focuses on the development of farm communities to show the example of ideal Vaishnava social structure. Through his secretary, Prabhupada sends a letter of encouragement to Hari Shauri Das at the New Govardhan farm in Australia. Prabhupada says, on these farms we can demonstrate the full Varnashram system. In these farms, if these farms become successful, then the whole world will be enveloped by Krishna consciousness. So, farm communities offer the possibility of self-sufficiency, and for Prabhupada, self-sufficiency is central to Varnashram. Self-sufficiency means whatever we need to sustain this our life, we should produce ourselves and not depend on others. And that way, we will be freed of dependency, and then we will be free to offer everything in Krishna's service. So in a social structure, having self-sufficiency is very, very, very important. And perhaps, and that's why farms are very important, because farms produce our basic necessities. And most of these farm projects, they kind of failed because they kind of forgot to emphasize on this. If you don't produce your own food and focus on self-sufficiency, then you have to depend on outside donations. And that may vary and eventually turn off. So Prabhupada started giving all these instructions as early as in 1969, actually, 68 even. Some people think Prabhupada started saying all these things only in the end. No. And Prabhupada bought the first farm community in 1969 in New Vrindavan. Many people don't know that. Thus, he advocates simple living and high thinking. Produce your own food, produce your own clothes. We hear him exhort followers. Even in his last days in Vrindavan, farms also produce the opportunity to engage in cow protection, which along with Brahminical culture, Prabhupada calls one of the two pillars of spiritual advancement. So village organization is an important means of reviving our Krishna consciousness. He tells devotees at Gita Nagari farm, Krishna in his natural life is a village boy in Vrindavan. He is satisfied in that life. So those who are Krishna conscious, they should be satisfied with simple life in the village. This is Srila Prabhupada's sentence. A simple lifestyle of taking care of the cows and living as Krishna taught by his personal example will help us remember Krishna. Simple logic. But what about the cities? That does not mean that we shall avoid city life or town life. No. Prabhupada explains. Every place is Krishna's place. Everywhere there should be Krishna consciousness. So in Vrindavan and Allahabad, we see Prabhupada explains the role of city temples as staging grounds for organizing Varnashram communities. Staging ground means city is where people are entangled in sinful activities. So you preach very rigorously in cities, convert them into devotees, and then slowly transfer them to farm communities. That's Prabhupada's real mission. In the first phase, devotees should go to the cities and attract the people by establishing temples and distributing Krishna conscious literature. Second, as people become devotees, they can be brought to farm communities where they can live the Krishna conscious lifestyle described in the books and remain fixed up in devotional practice without the temptation and material allurement of the cities. This is very important. Prabhupada says here, described in the books. See, many people, they are so much into book distribution, Harinam in the cities and preaching and preaching and preaching. Yeah, they're right. But the books you are distributing, they are talking mostly about living simple life. So if you just keep distributing books and you don't have any examples to show what's written in the books, that will be like a hypocrisy. People are not going to believe you. So it's very important. According to Srila Prabhupada's vision, the modern industrial cities provide an environment which crushes spiritual development, Prabhupada says. In town life, industrial life, factory life, Prabhupada says this town life, industrial life, factory life is asuric life, demoniac life. It is killing human ambition. It is killing civilization. Prabhupada is very strong. He tells devotees, the city temples can provide a way out of that environment by training devotees and directing them to Krishna conscious farm communities, where they can find wholesome occupations favorable to spiritual development. But Prabhupada also realizes that people living in the modern world may have become so far out of contact with the natural lifestyle demonstrated by Krishna, they are afraid to move to a simpler way of life. He notes that even the farmers' sons have left farming. Prabhupada noticed that 60, 70 years ago. Now it is very prominent. Therefore, in Vrindavan, he proposes a Varnashram college that will teach not only spiritual knowledge, but also practical skills such as how to give protection to the cows, how to till the field, and how to grow food. Leaders will be taught how to properly protect their citizens and provide them with training, land, and appropriate occupation. This was Srila Prabhupada's vision. Prabhupada also points out the dangers of an oppressive social system, condemning the modern caste system which designates people by their birth rather than their natural abilities as a perversion of Krishna's original Varnashram system. A little bit difficult sentence. But Prabhupada also points out the dangers of oppressive social system. Oppressive means a one Varna is trying to abuse another Varna. I mean, we are greater than you, Brahmanas are saying. So this kind of Varnashram system is called oppressive and it's demoniac Varnashram. Asuri Varnashram. And Prabhupada always condemned that. Some people think that when we say we are trying to establish Varnashram, Srila Prabhupada has asked to establish Varnashram, people think that, we are bringing the caste system back. No. Caste system is thoroughly condemned by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, his guru, all the way till Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were all against this today's caste system. What they wanted was occupational duties based on guna and karma. It's Daiva Varnashram. Even in his earliest lectures, he emphasizes the importance of mutual respect amongst members of different Varnas. If the work is done for Krishna, he tells devotees in Montreal, a potter's work is just as important as a Brahmana's work. Varnashram means appreciating the work of others, no matter what their occupation, because it is devotional service to Krishna. Because everybody is doing for the society, for the community. In this volume, we will see Prabhupada address these and many other concerns about Varnashram, ranging from sociology to government and economics. And we hear him explain how all aspects can be developed in a way that encourages spiritual progress. One may ask why, nearly 30 years after Prabhupada proposed the establishment of Varnashram, there is no example of developed Varnashram communities. Well, we have to replace 30 years to now 60 years, 50 years. Yeah, why we don't have Varnashram communities? Part of the reason is that the mundane social structures in which the first generation of Western devotees were brought up did not promote spiritual progress. Sometimes they did little even to promote material well-being for their citizens. With this kind of experience in our childhood and youth, many of us are puzzled at how to succeed in such an endeavor and therefore hesitant to proceed. That reservation is reasonable. It is difficult for a child of an abusive marriage to make his own marriage successful. Yet, if he is properly instructed and given supportive counseling, his marriage may be a wholesome and productive, as his parents' marriage was quarrelsome and miserable. Similarly, with good instruction and supportive counseling, we will be able to create a productive, spiritually focused social structure, even though the ones in which we were brought up failed in so many ways. That good instruction and supportive counseling have been kindly provided by our founder Acharya Prabhupada. The present research Prabhupada on Varnashram and farm community development is an effort to bring together all of Srila Prabhupada's instructions on Varnashram Dharma and the farm communities, which he saw as the building blocks of Varnashram social structure. Now we have a chance to hear from Prabhupada himself, and the answers to our questions and concerns regarding the topic of Varnashram social organizations are found in Prabhupada's lectures and conversations and letters. This first volume, speaking about Varnashram, focuses on Prabhupada's actual spoken conversations and lectures about Varnashram. Why focus on spoken words, one may ask? Isn't everything we need to know in Prabhupada's books? In fact, the fundamental message of Prabhupada's books and his conversations or lectures is the same. Dedicate your human form of life to serving Krishna. But the details and the emphasis that Prabhupada gives when in direct conversation with his disciples is sometimes different. Disciples are able to bring their specific questions to Prabhupada's attention, especially as they relate to current day affairs and practical matters. And in turn, Prabhupada, inspired by the devotees' interests, offer spontaneous response to their inquiry, which gives a fresh understanding to the topics at hand. Thus, there is special value in these spoken passages, and since they are generally harder to access in written form, it is worth gathering them together in one volume for study and reference. Himavati Dasi recounts in 1975 exchange between an ISKCON governing body commission officer and Prabhupada at Mayapur reunion. The GBC officer complained, "There are so many Prabhupada says, better only to accept what is in the books and tapes." And Prabhupada replied, "No, what I say in my talks also, many things I say are not in my books." So some people say that no need to listen to Srila Prabhupada's lectures and recording, just read his books. But there are many important things and detailed instructions are there in his books, in his lectures, conversations, and letters, especially letters actually. So hearing his conversations and lectures in chronological order gives us the chance to examine the evolution of Prabhupada's Varnashram presentation over the time. During the earliest days, he presents Varnashram as an ideal social structure, but one which is probably not possible for the present age. So Prabhupada's early lectures, if you hear, sometimes he says, it's impossible to establish Varnashram. And some of the devotees, they take this and they present, see, Prabhupada said it is impossible to establish Varnashram. Well, he said like that because it was impossible at that time. So as they grew up as a society, it became possible. And Prabhupada started giving instructions on how to do it. Nevertheless, even in that early period, he is intent on creating Brahmanas, devotees who would provide a head for the society, giving it sound spiritual guidance. During the middle period, he proposes that ISKCON's Brahmanas provide the leadership to create a model of Varnashram in which the rest of the world can also be included. And in the final phase, he presents Varnashram as an important preaching tool and a structure to be implemented initially within our ISKCON society, with devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement practicing at every level. Right from the beginning of his preaching, Prabhupada believed that an important strategy for spreading Krishna consciousness was to create a body of Brahmanas, devotees who were willing to follow strict standards of spiritual discipline and who would devote their lives to studying and conveying the message of the Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to others. The Vedic instruction of hereditary Brahmanas could not be maintained in the modern age. He explained to disciples at a 1969 Gayatri Mantra initiation in Boston. Everyone, even in India, had to be considered a Shudra due to the absence of the Garbhadhan Sanskar ritual, sanctifying the conception of a child. But even though it was not possible to rely on the Vedic Vidhi in the current age, legitimate Brahmanas could still be created by following the Pancharatrika Vidhi or devotional regulations established by the ancient sage Narad Muni and endorsed by the medieval Vaishnavas, saints Sanatan Goswami in his Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is accepted Vaishnava Smriti or authorized Vaishnava scripture. In offering Brahmana initiation to disciples following the Pancharatrika Vidhi method, Prabhupada was continuing the example set by his own spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, who had revived the Pancharatrika Vidhi process, even in the face of strong protest by India's hereditary Brahmanas. These Smarta Brahmanas had objected when Shudras were offered Brahminical initiation by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And they became more upset later on when Prabhupada began to offer Brahminical initiation to Westerners, who, according to their standards, were not even up to the level of Shudras. They are often called Yavanas. But Prabhupada staunchly defended the initiations, citing his spiritual master and Sanatan Goswami. Furthermore, it was Prabhupada's conviction that women could be included within the parameters of Sanatan Goswami's instructions for Brahminical initiation. And thus, he extended the offer of Brahminical initiation to them as well. Prabhupada's convictions were validated by tangible results. Everyone, from Indian government leaders to Western scholars and police chiefs, was impressed by Prabhupada. Prabhupada could take Westerners from a culture saturated with illicit sex, drugs, meat eating, and convert them to exemplary followers of Vaishnava culture. Prabhupada was proud of his disciples. In a commentary in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he states, Preachers in the Krishna consciousness movement have actually experienced that even the Yavanas and Mlecchas have taken to spiritual life on the strength of Narad Muni's Pancharatrika Vidhi. But success was not unmitigated. On one hand, Prabhupada's move to create Brahmanas had produced a core group of devotees who could follow rigid standards of temple living and act as knowledgeable preachers of Krishna conscious philosophy. But on the other hand, a large percentage of those initiated gradually faded out of active participation of Krishna consciousness. They were not able to maintain rigorous Brahminical standards required for living in a temple. For some, temple life was almost like a boot camp in the US Marine Corps, like military camp. It was a test of endurance. If the Marine Corps slogan was, "Are you good enough to get in?" ISKCON's slogan seemed to be, "Are you good enough to stay in?" What the author is trying to say was, yes, initially Srila Prabhupada tried to create Brahmanas only, but later it became evident that not everyone can become Brahmanas. The Brahmanas have to go severe austerity actually. They have to follow the temple standards very rigorously. And that's where Varnashram comes in, because everyone cannot be Brahman. In fact, Brahmanas are less than 1%. So Prabhupada realized that such a strict approach would inhibit most people from adopting Krishna consciousness. So by March 1974, we hear him outlining his plans for the creation of Varnashram College to provide the cornerstone for the development of Krishna conscious society, which include positions for the full range of human beings, not just those who could become satisfied as meticulous, austere Brahmanas. Everyone. Reading the conversations that are part of those historic Varnashram walks, Prabhupada sometimes will say, we will do regularly Varnashram walks. I will talk about Varnashram while walking. You guys record and follow. Establish Varnashram. That is Srila Prabhupada's order. So, in these Varnashram talks, we can tell that this is a new approach for the devotees listening to Prabhupada. Everyone will, what? New? Something new. They are surprised by the idea that Krishna consciousness is not only for the Brahmanas. This was the beginning of Prabhupada's deliberate move to establish a total Varnashram structure and not simply to create a group of Brahmanas. We will be reading a little bit. I have another 3 paragraphs. Okay, it will go a little bit over 45 minutes today. But from next time we will try to wind up within 45 minutes. 3 years later in Mayapur, in Prabhupada's culminating presentation on Varnashram, he emphatically reiterates his conviction that Varnashram is a critical tool for spreading Krishna consciousness. In big scale, you cannot make all of them Brahmanas or sannyasis, he explains to disciples. No, that is not possible. This is small scale. What percentage of people of the world are we attracting? Very insignificant. But if you want to make the whole human society perfect, then this Krishna consciousness movement should be introduced according to Krishna's instructions. If you want to do it in a large scale for the benefit of the whole human society. Now we are picking up some of them, the best. This is one thing. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Para Upakar, why only a certain section should be picked up? Let the whole mass of people get the benefit of it. But then it is required to be systematic. Therefore, we have to introduce this Varnashram Dharma. It must be done perfectly. It is possible and people will become happy. Now this is Srila Prabhupada's words. He says, it must be done perfectly. He says, it is possible. And he says, people will be happy. Now, whoever says Prabhupada said Varnashram is not possible is wrong. Whoever says that Prabhupada talked about Varnashram, but according to me, Varnashram is not possible, he is also wrong. It's our founder Acharya's orders to do this. But surely devotees within ISKCON are transcendental. His followers suggest they are Vaishnavas, so they are above Varnashram. Surely they will not be expected to take up different roles such as Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. But Prabhupada disagrees. Some people say Vaishnava is more than all these Varnas. Prabhupada says to become Vaishnava is not so easy. Now this is also Prabhupada's statement. To become Vaishnava is not so easy. If to become a Vaishnava is so easy, why do so many fall down? Even many sannyasis, gurus, they fall down. Why? Because they are not really sannyasis. They are not really brahmanas. They are just pretending to be brahmanas and sannyasis. Instead of pretending, you do your gunas work. If you are a Shudra, behave like a Shudra, then you can progress in Krishna consciousness properly. Even though he is proud of his disciples' achievements, the pride doesn't blind him to the fact that the 100% Brahmana approach to making devotees has led to a high dropout rate. Many people started giving up Krishna consciousness, stopped chanting. Why should a Shudra artificially be made a Brahmana? Prabhupada says. He challenges them. Let him remain a Shudra, and if he follows strictly the rules and regulations of a Shudra, he will be as good as a Brahmana. Even if he remains a Shudra, he is a Vaishnava. As a Shudra, he can get perfection. So if the philosophy for phase 1 of spreading Krishna consciousness seemed like the Marine Corps slogan, are you good enough to get in? The final phase was more like the army slogan, be all that you can be. Be all that you can be in Varnashram. Even if you can't be a Brahman, you can still be a Vaishnava no matter what your occupation is. You can still get spiritual perfection and you can still go back to Godhead. Just learn how to serve the Supreme Lord by doing your occupational duty. Then you will gain full spiritual knowledge and full satisfaction. Because of its magnanimous spirit and the date it was delivered, February 14, 1977, this culminating presentation on Varnashram is sometimes called Prabhupada's Mayapur Valentine. It's the last message of Srila Prabhupada. Here then is real love to establish a social system that can bring everyone from most pious to most materialistic back home, back to Godhead. Yours in Srila Prabhupada's service, Hare Krishna Devidasi, 29 April 1999, published in Brunswick, Maine. So this was the introduction to this book, speaking about Varnashram, given by the author, compiler, Hare Krishna Devidasi, who was disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Now that does not mean this book is not authentic. The rest of the book is 100% Prabhupada's words as it is. So we are going to start reading from chapter 1. I think we read chapter 1. Shall we skip chapter 1? Because in one of the meeting, we read chapter 1. Now we can read a little bit. That time we read little in a hurry. Maybe we can read little slow and turn on the slide and maybe discuss a little bit. Shall we stop here? I know already we all are engaged. Sorry, maybe I should switch to Marathi. आपण सगळे दिवसातून 2 वेळा 1-2 तास देतोच, सकाळचा क्लास ऐकायला, संध्याकाळचा क्लास ऐकायला, आणि त्यातून हे एक थोडंसं एक्स्ट्रा वाटेल आपल्याला. बट इट्स इम्पॉर्टंट. The more we hear, the more conviction we get that we are going in the right direction. Our founder Acharya has instructed us to do this, and he was the most intelligent person in the entire ISKCON. He had a vision, he had a mission, and he did it, isn't it? So we should read this. Reading also allows us to get together on a virtual platform. At least we see everybody's names. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. No question answers. No questions, no discussions. We'll discuss a little bit from next time, but no philosophical questions. If you have a philosophical questions like why we are doing this, faith related questions, then you should ask that in Bhagavad-gita class.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभूजी.
Yes.
मी म्हणत होतो की म्हणजे आपलं एकदा रीडिंग झाल्यानंतर एक 5-10 मिनिटं आपण स्लॉट वेळ ठेवून मराठीत एकदा समरी सांगितली तरी बरं पडेल. बाकीचे म्हणजे सारे हे आहेत बोलण्यासाठी.
या करू शकतो आपण. तर थोडक्यात तुम्हाला वेळ असेल तर मी सांगतो थोडक्यात. थोडासा वेळ झाला. हे जे पुस्तक आहे स्पीकिंग अबाउट वर्णाश्रम, ऍक्च्युली आपल्या सर्वांच्याकडे असले पाहिजे. माझ्याकडे 5-6 कॉपीज होत्या, पण कोण कोण घेऊन गेलं माहिती नाही. माझ्याकडे आता एकच कॉपी राहिली आहे. अजून मी मागवून घेतो वाटल्यास. प्रभुपाद गेल्यानंतर खूप केऑस झाला, खूप गोंधळ झाला, कोणाला काही समजेना. बिकॉज ही वॉज होल्डिंग एव्हरीवन टुगेदर. कुठल्याही मोठ्या संस्थेमध्ये असं होतं, जो करिझमॅटिक पॉवरफुल लीडर असतो तो एक ग्लू सारखं काम करत असतो, सगळ्यांना चिटकून ठेवायचा. पण तो गेला की सगळं गोंधळ निर्माण होतो. आणि तसंच झालं प्रभुपाद गेल्यानंतर. आणि लोकांच्या लक्षात येईना की एक्झॅक्टली करायचं काय. थोडीशी कॉन्स्पिरसी पण होती की काही शिष्यांनी इकडून उभे, ज्यांना गुरु व्हायचं होतं त्यांनी प्रभुपादांना मारलं की काय, अशी पण थोडीशी शंका होती. आणि ते बरेचसे जे पहिल्यांदा गुरु म्हणून झाले त्यांचं भयानक पतन पण झालं, ड्रग्ज, वुमेन वगैरे असं. आणि मग 1990च्या एंडला वगैरे, म्हणजे 1980च्या शतकाच्या एंडला, हे दशकाच्या एंडला, जे सिरियस डिसायपल होते शिल प्रभुपादांचे, त्यांनी एकत्र येऊन विचार केले की एक्झॅक्टली काय करतोय आपण. शिल प्रभुपादांनी काय सांगितलंय, आपण काय करतोय. प्रभुपादांनी ऍक्च्युली सोसायटी निर्माण करायला सांगितलेली शिष्यांनी एकत्र राहिलं पाहिजे आणि सिंपल लाईफ जगलं पाहिजे. मग सोसायटी कुठलीही निर्माण करायची असेल तर ते साधं सोपं काम नसतं. ऍक्च्युली एखादं गाव निर्माण करायचं हे राजाचं काम असतं. याच्यावरती बरीच पुस्तकं लिहिलेली आहेत. तुम्हाला आश्चर्य वाटेल की माझ्याकडे एक पुस्तक आहे माझ्या टेबलवर सध्या, इट्स कॉल्ड विलेज अँड विलेज लाईफ इन एन्शियंट इंडिया बाय किरण कुमार थॅपलाल, समथिंग लाईक दॅट. चाणक्य पंडितांनी भरपूर लिहिलेलं आहे की राज्य कसं निर्माण केलं पाहिजे, कम्युनिटी कशी निर्माण केली पाहिजे. आणि आपल्या उदाहरणावरून पण तुम्हाला लक्षात आलं असेल की कम्युनिटी तयार करणे एवढी साधी सोपी गोष्ट नाहीये, व्हेरी डिफिकल्ट. मग या सर्वांनी विचार केला आणि ठरवलं की प्रभुपादांनी याच्याबद्दल काय सांगितलंय हे थोडंसं आपण शोधून काढूया आणि एकत्र प्रिंट करूया. आणि त्यातूनच या पुस्तकाचा जन्म झाला, स्पीकिंग अबाउट वर्णाश्रम. याचे 5 व्हॉल्यूम काढायचे ठरलेले सुरुवातीला, परंतु तुम्हाला सगळ्यांना माहितीच आहे की इस्कॉन मध्ये एवढं पॉलिटिक्स चालतं. त्यांनी ते पुस्तक पब्लिश करायला परवानगी दिली नाही. आणि जे पहिलं व्हॉल्यूम पब्लिश केलेलं ते पण पब्लिकेशन बंद केलं. पहिलं व्हॉल्यूम बीबीटीनेच पब्लिश केलेलं, ते पण बंद केलं. मग नंतर परमपूज्य भक्ती राघव महाराज यांच्या टीमनी ते हातात घेतलं. त्यांची एक पब्लिशिंग छोटी कंपनी आहे वर्णाश्रम बुक ट्रस्ट म्हणून, त्या कंपनीद्वारे हे बुक पब्लिश करायला सुरुवात केली, म्हणून हे बुक आपल्याकडे आलं. तर हे जे लेखिका आहेत या बुकच्या, लेखिका म्हणू शकत नाही आपण, त्यांनी फक्त हे प्रभुपादांचं एकत्र आणलं सगळं. त्यांनी स्वतः काहीच लिहिलेलं नाही, एक शब्द पण लिहिलेला नाही याच्यामध्ये. त्यांनी स्वतः कंपाईल केलेलं आहे. तर त्यांनी एक टीम निर्माण केली आणि त्यांनी त्यांच्या लक्षात आलं की कम्युनिटी निर्माण करायचं असेल तर प्रभुपादांनी फक्त कम्युनिटी बद्दल इन्स्ट्रक्शन दिले. ते सगळ्यांना एकच नाव दिले, वर्णाश्रम. वर्णाश्रम कम्युनिटी, वर्णाश्रम. कारण कम्युनिटीमध्ये प्रत्येकाला कामं करायला लागतात आणि तीच कामं स्वार्थाने न करता, दुसऱ्याचे काम न करता, स्वतःच्या फायद्यासाठी कसं करता येईल, मग एकदम त्यांच्या डोक्यात आलं की त्यालाच वर्णाश्रम म्हणतात. आणि प्रभुपादांनी तर हजारो इन्स्ट्रक्शन दिलेले आहेत वर्णाश्रमावरती, हजारो, लाखो ऍक्च्युली. काही भक्तांना पटत नाही, पण हे सत्य आहे. आणि मग या माताजी बसल्या आणि त्यांनी सगळं शोधून काढायला सुरुवात केलं. हे एक पहिलं पुस्तक निर्माण झालं. मोठं पुस्तक आहे ऍक्च्युली, माझ्या हातात तुम्ही बघू शकता. आणि अजूनही भरपूर मटेरियल आहे वर्णाश्रमवरती. आणि प्रभुपाद काही ठिकाणी सिरियसली म्हणतात की हेच आपल्या मिशन, आपल्या ऑर्गनायझेशनचं मेन मिशन आहे, फार्म कम्युनिटीज आणि वर्णाश्रम तयार करणे. अक्षरशः शिव्या घालून म्हणतात प्रभुपाद, सिटीमध्ये राहणारे मूर्ख असतात, बदमाश असतात, डेमन्स, असुर असतात, कोणीही राहिलं नसलं पाहिजे. आणि हे सगळं इग्नोर करतो आपण दुर्दैवाने. खूप वाईट परिस्थिती आहे सध्या भक्तांच्या कम्युनिटीमध्ये. कोणालाच हे पटत नाही, कोणालाच हे पटत नाही म्हणण्यापेक्षा जे आपले लीडर आहेत, जे उपदेश करतात दुसऱ्यांना, त्यांनाच पहिल्यांदा हे रुचत नाही, त्यामुळे ते सांगतच नाहीत कोणाला. पण आता हे आपण पुढच्या आठवड्यापासून जे वाचणार आहोत त्याच्यामध्ये श्रील प्रभुपाद अगदी सिरियसली सांगतात की हे अगदी रागीट स्वभावात. आता तो टोन आपल्याला आणता येणार नाही वाचताना, पण तुम्हाला जर माहित पाहिजे असेल तर ते रेकॉर्डिंग आहेत, तुम्ही ऐकू शकता. कधी कधी प्रभुपाद अगदी चिडून म्हणतात, फार्म 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 का करत नाहीये तुम्ही, माझी ऑर्डर का पाळत नाहीये तुम्ही, सगळ्यांनी फार्म मध्ये गेलं पाहिजे, या शब्दात सांगितलंय प्रभुपादांनी. आणि मग त्याला ट्विस्ट करून, त्याला दुमडून आपल्याला सांगितलं जातं की काही गरज नाही, तुम्ही शहरातच करू शकता. हे सगळी बोगस आहे. पण प्रभुपाद एवढ्या सिरियसली सांगितलेच नसते. आणि हे सिस्टमॅटिकली समजावून सांगण्यासाठी हे पुस्तक कंपाईल केलं या हरे कृष्ण देवीदासींनी. आणि जसं पहिल्याच पॅरेग्राफमध्ये ते सांगतात की येस, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्रच आपल्याला तारून नेणार आहे, नो डाऊट अबाउट दॅट. परंतु तो हरे कृष्ण महामंत्राचा जप करायला जे वातावरण लागतं, ते वातावरण सिटीत नाही. सिटीमध्ये आपण इतके डिस्टर्ब्ड असणार, मीटिंग आहे, कस्टमर आहे, क्लायंट आहे, माझे पैसे इथे चुकले, हे जो व्याज आलं नाही, कोण जप कसा करणार नाही. म्हणून त्यासाठी कम्युनिटी निर्माण करणे आणि बेसिक गरजा सेल्फ सफिशियंट होणे खूप गरजेचं आहे. अन्न असेल, वस्त्र असेल, निवारा असेल, तर आपलं टेन्शन जातं आणि आपण शांतपणे जप करू शकतो आणि भगवंतांसाठी काम करू शकतो. तर वर्णाश्रम मध्ये कामच करायचं आहे. हे लेखिका म्हणतात की याचा अर्थ असा नाही की ब्राह्मणाने ब्राह्मणाचं काम केलं की संपलं. मी काय करतोयच ना, मी पठण पाठन करतोय, यज्ञ पूजा करतोय, नाही. ब्राह्मणाने ते समाजाच्या हितासाठी करायचं असतं. क्षत्रियाने क्षत्रियचा धर्म हा समाजाच्या हितासाठी करायचा असतो. वैश्याने वैश्याचा जो धर्म आहे, मॅक्झिमम लोकांना वैश्य म्हणजे वाटतं दुकान चालवणे. नो, वैश्य म्हणजे उत्पादन करणे, प्रोड्यूस करणे. प्रोड्यूस करण्यासारखं काय आहे? अन्नधान्य आणि दूध. ते देखील त्याने समाजाच्या हितासाठी केलं पाहिजे. मग हे असे सगळे एकत्र येऊन एकमेकांना मदत केले की तुमच्या अंगात जे गुण आहे ते तुम्ही करा, माझ्या अंगात गुण आहे मी करतो, सगळे एकत्र येऊन भावा बहिणीसारखे राहू आपण आणि भगवंतांचे गुणगान करू आणि जप करू. याला परफेक्ट कम्युनिटी म्हणतात. आणि हे बनवायची श्रील प्रभुपादांची इच्छा होती. प्रभुपाद म्हणायचे की असे जागोजागी असे आपले कम्युनिटीज असले पाहिजेत, जेणेकरून सगळे आपल्याकडे येतील. जेव्हा युद्ध होईल, खायला प्यायला काही मिळणार नाही, सगळे म्हणतील चला प्रभुपादांच्या फार्म कम्युनिटीकडे, कारण दुसरं कोणी नसणारच आहे तेव्हा. हे खूप महत्वाचा आस्पेक्ट आहे श्रील प्रभुपादांच्या चळवळीचा. याला इतक्या लाईटली आपण घेतलं नसलं पाहिजे. आणि यस, आपल्यापैकी जे सगळे ऐकत आहात तुम्ही सगळ्यांना याचं महत्व माहिती आहे, तरी पण आणखीन एकदा हे पुस्तक आपण वाचायचं का ठरवलं? अजूनही छोटे छोटे कन्सेप्ट आपले कदाचित आपल्याला डाऊट्स असेल, शंका असेल की प्रभूजी एक्झॅक्टली तिथे कामच कसं करायचं, एक्झॅक्टली कसं असतं हे सगळं वर्णाश्रम, कम्युनिटी काय असते, तर ते प्रभुपाद सांगणार आहेत. प्रभुपाद स्वतः सांगणार आहेत. ते वाचल्यानंतर आपल्याला थोडासा कॉन्फिडन्स येईल, म्हणून हे पुस्तक मी कंपाईल केलेलं आहे. तर हे आजच्या इंट्रोडक्शनचं थोडंफार मराठीमध्ये सारांश होता. हरे कृष्ण. इंग्लिश शब्द कधी कधी मध्ये थोडेसे अवघड शब्द येतात. अवघड शब्द म्हणण्यापेक्षा वाक्य जेव्हा मोठं होतं ना तेव्हा समजायला कठीण जातात. तेव्हा हे गुगल मीट मध्ये खाली हे असतं ना हाताचं चिन्ह, ते हाताचं चिन्ह दाबा म्हणजे मला कळेल की हे पुन्हा रिपीट करून वाचायचं आहे. असं आपण करूया म्हणजे इझी जाईल. ओके, लेट्स यूज टेक्नॉलॉजी फॉर आवर ऍडव्हान्टेज. हरे कृष्ण. आता इथेच थांबूया आपण. खूप खूप धन्यवाद. वांछा कल्पतरुभयश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. वैष्णव ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. वर्णाश्रम धर्म की जय. हरे कृष्ण.